Today we are talking about Bremont. I've been very critical of their price points and their designs in the past. Recently, I've had two fairly large experiences with Bremont. I was invited to their factory in Henley, which is just outside of London, and then I went to one of their townhouse events, which was pretty epic. Welcome back to Buck and Jack. I'm Adrian, and this channel is just about me exploring watches. I'm not a watch expert, I'm just a watch lover, and this is me basically documenting my journey through watches, what I experienced I'd pretty much share with you guys. My views on Bremont have completely changed. Again, this is not paid for, there's no connection with me and Bremont. They still don't have a watch that I want. That's not quite true. I saw one the other day that I really liked. I still question their design of their watches, but branding, their journey, that's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about the factory first, because that was quite an impactful thing, and I spent so long talking to Nick English, one of the brothers, one of the founding brothers. You got Giles and you got Nick English, who started the company. Their factory is by no means like a completed unit. There's multiple sites. There's a lot going on. It's jam-packed full of equipment, jam-packed full of people. It was a nice environment, but you can see that they're very clearly a fast-growing company, and they have outgrown that factory that they have. They are actually building a brand new unit very close to where they are, and hopefully that's going to be finished, I think, the end of this year, beginning of next year. The thing that amazed me with what they're doing is how quickly they're expanding. They are not messing about, and that's one of the things that struck me about their price point. I really wanted to go in and quiz them about their price point. It wasn't until the end, when we were starting to wrap things up, I remembered, oh yeah, I want to talk about the price point. Actually, we had a very impromptu conversation. We'll talk about that one later. But the price point, it made sense. I didn't need the price point to be explained to me. The whole thing, it was as if this jigsaw just suddenly came together. I've been comparing, when it comes to price point, my last video was very critical of their Concorde piece, the Supersonic. I was comparing it to the price point of Patek, which is a stupid thing to do, because it's very different branding, very different heritage, and they aren't the same watch. I often take their tool watches and compare the price points of the Bremont tool watch to a Rolex, to an Omega, to an IWC. You can't do that. They are completely different machines that are working here. It's unnecessary to do that. You could take two watches at two price points and compare them for sure. Rolex and Omega have been around for a very long time. They have a lot of knowledge to draw from. They have a lot of things that they've tried and tested and don't need to change. The Submariner movement, for example, I think it's been around for about over 20 years, maybe 30 years now. 88, yeah, 30 years now. So they've got a lot of things that they've already invested in. They've already done the R&D. Of course, Rolex spend a lot more on R&D right now, but they've already done that main bit of R&D. They can now churn out these watches and reap the profit. Bremont aren't in that stage yet. It's a journey that Bremont are on. They haven't made a watch and that's it. This is kind of like a stepping stone for them to go forward. They are so hell-bent on creating a British-made movement. But to make that costs a huge amount of money. If you don't have the money to do that, what do? You start selling products to build up the capital, to build up the momentum, to build the branding, to then do that end product. So my whole point about that is, yes, their watches are expensive. Yes, you might be spending £4,000 on an ETA-powered watch, but that's also your ticket into being part of Bremont. You're then joining that journey that Bremont are on. You're helping them get to this end goal. You are buying into this kind of secret club that is Bremont. They've created this community. So from that point of view, I'm completely bought into what they're up to. I kind of feel like I've now visited two ends of the spectrum of British watchmaking, going to Roger Smith at the absolute top of watchmaking, of British global watchmaking, over on the Isle of Wight. And now I've been to Bremont in Henley, which is the other end of the spectrum. Bremont are trying to really push for creating a mass-produced watch. They're not hiding behind that. They want everyone to have a Bremont. And it's really interesting the tools that they have to do that. They have all these fancy gizmos and gadgets that do stuff. For example, testing a watch. They had a unit that could test one watch at a time. They very proudly opened up this thing that then tests something like 20 watches at a time. They have a girl fitting the hands to a watch, but then they've bought this machine that will automate the hand fitting on a watch, which is crazy. So it's interesting to see two different spectrums of watchmaking, very, very hands-on and very, very hands-off. They obviously want to make great watches, but it's all about how can we do this in the most efficient way. Let's talk about the Townhouse. So basically, Bremont won't be at Baselworld. They don't go to these events because it's incredibly expensive. What they do instead is they spend the money that they would have done at something like Baselworld, and they hire this amazing building, and they put an event. And it was one hell of a party on so many levels. It was entertaining. There was lots to see. There were lots of watches. They had their head watchmaker there. They had watches for you to try. They had the whole selection out in one area. There was a band that was going around who were absolutely superb. I'd love to play their music, but I'd get a copyright strike, and I think we're all aware of what happens when you get copyright strikes. They had loads of military people there. They had Foxy and Ollie from the SAS program, Who Dares Wins. It was a great event. It was really very cool. It wasn't just watches. It was about the community. It was about getting people together. It was about celebrating where these guys have been, and now the 10 years of their MB watch. For me, that's what watch marketing is all about, and I think Bremont are years ahead of what everyone else is doing. Baselworld's a good laugh, but it's very much about the high-end watch bloggers, the press, and then also the ADs, seeing who they can sell their products to. The Townhouse isn't anything like that. They did have the watch suppliers there, but it's all about the community. It's all about engaging with the people. And you had the brothers just walking around. You had the head watchmaker, as I said, just talking about the movements that they're working on. It's about us, and I think that's really quite cool. Everything else is suits and ties and formalities. With these guys, it's rolled up shirts and jeans, and I really connect with that sort of branding. I really would connect with that idea of adventure, the chilled out branding, that doing what you want as opposed to pandering to the market or looking up to someone else. It's focusing on what you really connect with. And free alcohol as well. I'm always up for free alcohol. So a big thing about Bremont is their connection with the military. They've always worked with squadrons and units to create watches, bespoke watches for them. And I think 20-25% of their business is with the military, the global military as well. They showed us all of these dials that they've created for people all around the world, US units, German units, British units. It's quite cool. It's quite a cool connection. The reason there were so many military people at this Townhouse event is because Bremont are now the official partners of the Ministry of Defence. They now make the official watches for Her Majesty's Armed Forces, which is quite a cool connection. They've launched 3 watches as part of this. You've got one for the RAF, you've got one for the Army, and then one for the Navy. The RAF one is my favourite, not being biased because my dad's in the RAF, was in the RAF, but it's my favourite. It's a monopusher, very, very cool watch. They've got a simple field watch for the Army guys, and then the Navy have a divers. On the back, they have the insignia of all 3 branches of the services, which is it's such a brilliant connection for a British brand to have that connection with the British military. There's a serious side of it because these are tool watches. I don't know how many would choose this sort of watch over something like a G-Shock, but regardless, it's a genuine connection. It's an official connection, so it's quite cool. Obviously, this is fantastic marketing, but it's not marketing BS. This is genuine. This is a genuine connection, and I think it's quite exciting. I think it's quite cool. When I spoke to Nick at the end of this factory tour, I did ask him about the price point. I said I told him I was critical of the price point, and I wanted him to kind of dissect it and explain why the price point is there. And he was quite open about it all. He said, yes, the movement is just an ETA movement. You can get these movements in multiple watches. They do play with them a little bit, but it's just an off-the-shelf movement. So then for them, They don't focus on the movement. They focus on the finishing, they focus on the case, they focus on the design, and they don't mess about when they do that. You can't just take an ETA powered watch and compare it to another ETA powered watch. There's a lot more that goes on with that. For example, you can't take a Zinn ETA powered watch and compare it to a Bremont ETA powered watch, or an IWC ETA powered watch, or a Breitling ETA powered watch. There's a lot more of a package that goes on with that. The finishing is going to be completely different. The branding is going to be different. You are buying into a brand, regardless of whether you want to admit it. Buying an Omega Speedmaster because it went to the moon, you have to pay for that. You have to pay for that entry. The same with Rolex. You want a watch that can go underwater. You want a watch that Roger Federer wears. You've got to pay for that. And the same goes with Bremont. Bremont have done a huge amount of testing. They invest masses into the testing of their watches. The MB range, Martin Baker range, was created in conjunction with the Martin Baker ejection seats. They've been tested to hell and back, and that costs money. So it's not just the ETA movement. There are other things going on here. The value of a watch, or the pricing, whether you think something is affordable, cheap, or expensive, that simply comes down to your desire to be part of that. If you want to be part of that club, then you're going to pay the price. And this kind of goes back to my comment about the Supersonic. I'm not going to change that video. My points were, I think, were very valid. I thought the Supersonic was overpriced because I don't really care about the Concorde. It was a cool aircraft. It did some amazing things, but I don't want a watch that's connected to it. There will be plenty of other people who do have a connection with the Concorde and do want to have that piece of history, or the Wright brothers watch that they have, the Flyer, that people will want to pay that price to have that piece of limited history. So just because I think that something's expensive doesn't mean that it is expensive, if that makes sense. I know I sound like a Bremont fanboy. I appreciate that. Again, this is not paid for. There's no connection with me and Bremont apart from this visit. There still aren't many watches that I'd buy from them. I really do like the look of their chronographs, and that would probably be a route that I'd go down. Their divers, their MB range isn't quite for me yet. I still feel that they're too large. They're big in America, and apparently you guys in America like your larger watches. So that kind of makes sense that they need to stick with the larger watches, because that's the market. Or maybe that's just what they like to do. I don't know. I didn't quiz them on that. But I have bought into that branding. I've bought into their journey. I've been inspired by where they're going. And maybe, I didn't think I was patriotic, but maybe there's a little bit of patriotic motivation there. The fact that they are a British company trying to make a dent in the watchmaking world, which I think is quite cool. Guys, I'm going to leave you with that. I'd love to know your thoughts on Bremont. I know lots of people are going to say they're too expensive, or they don't like this, or don't like that. And for me, still, I feel like they're expensive. But that's just because I can't price in that entry into their secret club right now. It's not secret, it's just a club. Guys, if you want to support the channel, jump over to barkandjack.com and help yourself to a NATO strap. If you like this sort of stuff, hit subscribe down the bottom. If you want to follow me on Instagram, I'm at barkandjack, and I will see you guys next time. Take care.